Black families are homeschooling at levels higher than ever before. Recently, we interviewed homeschooling parents, grads, and family members about homeschooling with the help of Remake Learning's Shifting Powers research project. Here's what they said.
Hi, my name is Stacy, and these are my two sons. I'm 42, Adam is 13, and Abbas is 8. Our entire homeschooling family is made up of myself, my husband, and my 2 children. I decided to homeschool because I was having a few problems with the educational system. So it ended up adding up with, we eat different types of food. We eat a type of food called halal food, and which is prepared and slaughtered in a certain way. And the school did not offer halal food. They didn't offer even a vegetarian dish. So what ended up happening was that my son Adam was eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every day. I tried to send him to school with food, but they would not allow him to use the microwave. So I could send him to school with sandwiches and chips and these types of things, or have him participate. And he felt better getting a tray and eating with his classmates. So that's what we ended up going with. So that was just one of the things, was a food situation. And then when the curriculum became really simplistic, easier for him, he had other problems within the classroom environment. But the last straw was back-to-back suspensions with no witnesses. Like, the teachers weren't witnessing things, and the other, what they call scholars, were witnessing. And based on what the other student scholars said, my son Adam was being suspended for that. So if there wasn't going to be proper supervision, I decided to take it into my own hands and supervise my children's educational day. Our household differs from other homeschooling households because I think we're more laid back as far as what our curriculum and what we're learning. I cater my curriculum directly for my students, my kids, which are my children. So we don't have an out-of-the-box curriculum, which I think a lot of homeschooling families feel comfortable with, because in essence, I'm not chasing a test score. I'm not chasing standardized tests. We're not chasing anything. We're just living, like acquiring knowledge that we need right now. And so I think that's one way that our homeschool differs, is that we base it on childhood, like being able to be a child, having fun, having play, and also learning the things that you need to know that are appropriate for you in your environment or situation. Well, I'll let Adam answer first. What is your typical homeschool day like?
My day is wake up at 7:30 to 8:30 maybe. You know, hygiene, all that. And then I clean up like some rooms in the house. And then maybe by 10:30, 11, I start a worksheet, 1 worksheet, 2 worksheets of math or ELA. And I would normally be done with school at around 12 to 12:30. And that would be it for school, really. Sometimes I do other stuff like reading books on Kindle, stuff like that.
Yeah. And sometimes
Am I missing something?
Yeah, sometimes he reads articles, like
Right.
daily, 5 articles a day, so he can keep up with the news. A lot of stuff they do in the day, like what he's trying to recall, because it's so natural. It's like the unnatural thing is the math worksheet, because you have to do math, but then it's like, okay, yeah, I clean up, and then, oh yeah, I read a book, because you naturally read. He's naturally interested in the news, so he can get his phone out and scroll, or his Chromebook out, and he can look up articles about anything. I try to request, like, mix it up between news, sports, weather, with political events that's going on. But like last year, it was in 2020, there was so many things going on as far as what was happening with COVID, with civil rights issues or racial rights issues. And so those 5 articles kind of that's what the news was putting out there. So that's what he was kind of getting. So it's kind of like a current events situation. But yeah, the timeline is absolutely right. 7:30 to 8, we call chores, or like you said, cleaning. And then by noon, we try to cut it off and go ahead and be kids for the rest of the day. Abbas, do you want to explain what your school day is like?
Okay. My school, I wake up at like 7:30, like somewhere close to the same time as that. And I wake up, I brush my teeth, and I wash my face. My mom assigned me schoolwork on the whiteboard. I try to do that schoolwork at least. And then probably like at 6 p.m. I'd like go to soccer practice or something.
It's like a school day.
And after that, if I'm not done with the schoolwork, I just continue with schoolwork. And
That's it.
Yep.
That's it.
And so see his interpretation.
I'm also in soccer.
it's hard.
Yeah, his school day, as he interprets it, is like it includes his sports, because that's like PE for us. So we do sign them up for outside sports. And because he's in the 3rd grade, last year he was in the 2nd, his school day is very flexible. So I try in the morning time to assign whichever work that he has, and then he can go throughout the day. We try to get it done, but it's not a backbreaker if it doesn't get done. So if he doesn't, he can come back and do it, and then, or we continue the next day with it. But yeah, that's a part of your school day sports. I finally became confident about homeschooling and what I was doing with my homeschool. It took me about a year, because the first year I felt relief that I wasn't getting phone calls from the school, and that was like just immediate relief. But as far as like curriculum and all that, it took about a year. And it was a year because when we finished our first year, I actually saw how satisfied Adam was with homeschooling. He was very satisfied with it. And I was very impressed at some of the informal information that he was learning, information outside of like brick and mortar, because we spend time on trails and just outside roaming around. And I was like, wow, like a lot of kids don't know what type of butterflies are in this local area, or what type of trees, or reading maps of trails and things like that. So I was really like, this is the type of knowledge I could actually see the knowledge that he was acquiring, because it related to everyday life. So as we're navigating life, he would know things instead of just like knowing what's in a book and what was assigned for this 6 weeks. And so it was like a year to just see the difference, and I felt real comfortable with him. Now, as far as my younger son, Abbas, he's been homeschooling since he was in the 1st grade. And so I'm just impressed with his vocabulary immediately after he left kindergarten. And his math skills are very high, but it's just based on his pace. So because he's the only one homeschooling his grade, we just go at his pace. If he's having trouble, we slow down. If he's not, we speed up. So I was just impressed by vocabulary with my youngest one, but just life in general with my oldest 13-year-old.
Taking a break, going on my notebook and just watching YouTube for like 30 minutes.
Okay, so when homeschooling gets hard, you take a break and watch you some YouTube.
Yep.
Okay.
That's what I did today.
Okay.
To be honest, it really doesn't get hard during the day for me a lot, but when it does, I usually eat a snack or lunch and refresh myself. Maybe take a shower, and then get back to it. Or soccer, that works as well.
So sports sometimes, yeah. For me, when schooling gets hard, I just think about, wow, I have my family with me. My babies are safe. And that if it's hard for me and how much love I have for my children, I know it gets hard for teachers in the school, and it's not their children they're dealing with. So just sometimes I get that peace of mind and say, everything I'm feeling right now, even though it feels hard, I'm doing it out of love, compassion, dedication, and just for the dignity of my kids. So, and that keeps me going, because I know I'm like Adam and a boss. And when it gets hard, I take a break. I can take a break. I can say, okay, guys, today we're going to change it up a little bit. We're going to learn how to cook today for homeschooling. And so my day gets actually easier. I can say, we're cooking, so they learn how to cook, and the meal is done. Now we got lunch, or we have made dinner together. So, or sweets. This one has a sweet too. So our sweets. So if we're having a hard time, we can just eat some sugar, and then it all gets better.
It made me it made me more relaxed. Like I don't have to wake up at 6 a.m., get on clothes and all that. I can just wake up, stay in my bed for a little bit, do some work and all that, and I don't have to brush my teeth real quick. I can slow down. I have to go.
Awesome, knows what it is. For me, it's just I can manage my time better, because going from school from 6:30 to 3:30. What was it? 7 to 3:30.
7-11 at the bus, and then you get out at 3:15 and you get home around 3:45.
I had after school as well.
Yeah.
So it was I would be getting home at 5, and some days it was you gotta hurry up, get to soccer. Right now it's just, you have time, you finish school at noon, you're out before everyone else in America, and you got 3-4 hours to practice soccer. You got 3-4 hours to do what you want to do, manage your life, not be in a building with 20 other kids getting bullied.
Yeah.
And it's nice. Everyone's saying homeschool this, homeschool that, all that, but everyone wishes they were homeschooled. I'm telling you that right now. You want to be homeschooled. Everyone does.
Yeah, and
used to be wished to.
Yeah. And for me, it has changed me as a person, because I feel more fulfilled. I didn't even know that feeling was coming, but when I look around, I'm I actually have no feelings of guilt. I don't know why, when he was being schooled and would have hard days, or I would feel guilty because I'm not there. I don't know what happened today. I don't know what actually occurred to make maybe another kid lash out at you, or you lash out at another kid, and then I would feel guilty because he's going to school with limited food, and whatever problems that would happen, it would just be well, I went through it, so now you have to go through it. And then you get to thinking about that, and you're well, do you have to go through that? Is that the right process of, making a human being? And so, yeah, I feel fulfilled as a mother. I'm able to do what I should be doing for my children. It's also, and then it allows me, believe it or not, I have more free time because I'm not constrained into a certain hours of the day. Like, okay, I can make my doctor's appointments at this time. I can have doctor's appointments at any time for them as well. So they don't have to, we oftentimes get school notes, you know, just because that's an automatic thing, they hand it to you. But I can make appointments at any time of the day for them, myself. And so that it's just like, I guess I have to agree with them, it's less stressful, it's more relaxing as you go throughout your days. And once you get used to it and in the flow of it, you know, you're like, wow, I'm living. And I just know now I spend a lot of time with them. And so I know, I feel fulfilled because I actually know my children. Like I know that what they like, what they don't like, as much as you can know about another human being's likings and dislikings. So. Yeah,
I'll answer.
You want to answer first?
Yeah.
Okay.
It changed me, like, changed my relationship, like, that I get to stay home with my brother, I get to stay home with my mom, and it's like, I get home before my dad now.
Yeah.
He usually did. When I was in
like
school.
around.
Yeah, but like, I just feel more safer now because I just feel safer.
Yeah, that's one thing.
I know
Safety. Another is like I can just talk to my mom about whatever for an hour or two at times. It's a really hard question to answer, really, so just leave it at that.
Yeah, I think that our relationship, household relationship, we're more tight knit. So it's like when I go out places, people are like, wow, your children are so well behaved. And it's kind of like, I don't know what other, I do know by observation, but just in that moment, I'm like, thank you. But because they're used to being around each other, each of them get attention. Like he said, we'll talk sometimes for an hour about something, whatever, whether it's a good or bad, something we saw in the news, something we football or a sporting event. And so he gets attention and he gets the attention he wants. And so when we get out in public, they're not vying for each other's attention. They're not vying for my attention, but they're not perfect kids. But I'm just saying, like, I'm guessing maybe some of that is what alleviates it. But yeah, our relationships, I have, I can talk to a boss anytime. I know he can feel safe anytime that he wants. If you want to get a hug in the middle of the day, if you know, some people have those kind of affectionate type of kids that just want a hug, and he can get it anytime he wants. And he likes being home when his dad gets home because he likes to spend lots and lots of time with his dad. So he can do that from the time he walks into that door till the time daddy goes to sleep. So. Okay, so the tools that I use to homeschool are grandparents. I also use Chromebooks, which allow access online. When I first started homeschooling, I used Khan Academy a lot, but that just does not work.
No.
I discovered that.
Khan Academy kids, I was just too big brain for. Like, I just got through every little level game like twice.
Yeah, so I think Khan Academy has now structured it more with the K through 12 system, and so it just does not work for them because it's just not, they're not on that type of level, or I don't know exactly what it is, but they told me they were dissatisfied with it. But me as a schooled kid, I looked at it, I was like, this is great. So we don't use Khan Academy anymore, but that was a tool. Last year, I tried just a little bit of OutSchool with him, and he was satisfied with it just a little bit. Like, he didn't like the subject, but just the online like interaction because it's interactive. So OutSchool is a tool that I'll be using, and I use print books like Brain Quest for his level because it's full color. And each page has only a little bit of things that they have to do. They read and then only do maybe 5 examples. And so it doesn't intimidate him. And so I really like Brain Quest. I also use Spectrum for math, repetitive math, which is, and it caters to the K through 12 system, but I like it because it has lots of worksheets as far as math is concerned. And then after that, I use Kindle. I'm a subscriber to Kindle Unlimited, just because I like a lot of their books, especially for for the 3rd grade, 2nd grade and below. They have immediately, you can get access to like Minecraft books or Sonic books that these independent publishers are just making. And so if you just pay your subscription, it's unlimited. And so I also do that. With him, I do Kindle Unlimited, but I also do ebooks from the library, because sometimes we would go and get the hard copies of the books. But now, in our situation now, everything's easier just by getting it on the Chromebooks. But because I'm homeschooling, that tool is not overused, with them having too much screen time and trying to learn. So I also use, like I said, hard copy worksheet books. And then we use our home. We use our pets sometimes to learn. We use our yard to learn. We use, I had my medical doctor just retired, so he's not here, but he used to invite me out with the kids so that they could actually see what he does. And he was an African-American doctor, so they gave them a chance to see an African-American doctor perform what he does, and he would talk to them and encourage them. So I was very happy with that, and all kinds of community resources that we can do. But we actually use, as far as learning, we use the soccer association because he's like a referee, and he's being trained. He's being trained to be a referee, and so that's a part of his education. He actually learns the game by the book to be able to referee, and so we use that is an informal system of education that we use, and there's so many tools out here that I think informally that we use that I'm so afraid that I might be missing some. But I mean, a grocery store can be used as a tool as well, just with basic math and food types. And we learn, my 3rd grader now is learning about calories and carbohydrates and different things like that. So as a part of chemistry and health. So yeah, but just some of the things that others may be like typically used to, like, Khan Academy. It didn't work for our kids, but it might be a good tool to, if you're removing your kid from the school system, it might be a familiar tool that they're familiar with and make them feel comfortable on their way to other adventures in homeschooling. So yeah. I think some of the stereotypes about homeschooling is that you have to be rich, that you have to have a lot of money, and that's just simply not true. It actually turns out for my family in our situation to be cheaper to homeschool because we don't use a lot of gas. Okay, we can do things. I can give examples. So for example, barber schools, they usually cut hair in the day because the barbers are getting educated from certain hours, which are in school hours. So instead of paying $20 for a haircut, we pay $5 for a haircut by a student for a child. Like my child, it's just a child's haircut instead of paying, but once they get a certain age, they pay full adult prices. And then it ends up at the end, a professional licensed barber comes and examines it. And if there's anything wrong, he fixes it. So again, that's just one example of how it's cheaper. It doesn't cost a lot of money. We don't have the whole thing where they're seeing other kids with expensive clothing, and so therefore they want it. And then you feel a little pressure to reward, okay, you did good in school, so I'll buy you a $200 pair of shoes. That doesn't happen. We do good at educating ourselves every day, and we know we need education for life. So the reward is you're living life. You know about the things around you. But no, you don't need a lot of money for homeschooling. A lot of things in the modern homeschooling era, which I think we're in, are free. All the things online, most of the time, are free. The libraries, access to it are free. So another one is that only white Christian people homeschool. And again, and that's just not true. I mean, it might be the face that a lot of media is giving to homeschooling. It might be the loudest voices that are being heard about homeschooling. And it's just not true, because if you're in the actual schooling system, sometimes you can say, yeah, the loudest voices being heard even in the schooling system might be, white or Christian or however. So, but that's just not true. Anyone can homeschool. Now, the people who decide to homeschool, it might be a little bit, it might be a little bit more of one type of person than the other. But as far as being able to homeschool, anyone
can do it.
Yes.
No discrimination.
And some people think that kids at homeschool are bad kids. That's one
or
thing.
mentally off.
Yeah.
Mentally off.
That they have something wrong with them. And not just mentally, but
It could be
just something.
Physically.
Yeah, physically, or they think like
I don't know.
yeah, but
Something is longer than yeah.
or the other way around, they think, well, if your kid is smart, that's why they're homeschooling. So some people think, well, my kid is just average, so they don't need to be homeschooled. And that's another myth. The myth that I hear most people tell me when they find out I homeschool, or when I tell them I homeschool, is that I couldn't do that. My kids won't listen to me. I couldn't do it. And it's like, that is simply not true. It's simply not true. If they listen to their teacher at school, they will listen to you, and they will listen to you more, because they have no choice. It's not that you have to intimidate them. It's just, this is the way it is. This is the reality. I am your mom, or I am your dad or father or whoever. So that is the number one, that I can't teach my own children. And so what I usually reply to that is that you actually were your child's first teacher. Remember, before they went to daycare, even when you left the hospital, you were teaching them how to eat, how to walk, yes, how to talk, their speech, their first colors. You were your child's first teacher. But if you think 5 years later that you let someone else has taught them, then you become used to not actually giving them curriculum, but you still are your child's number one teacher. Most things that we learn are outside of school. And so you are still your number one teacher for your child. So, and people say, yeah, I don't think of it that way. So, but just a different perspective. So homeschooling versus public schooling, it really changes every year, because some years, and I say that because the laws as far as schooling are concerned change. So for example, because I took my 13-year-old out of school in the 4th grade, and he is homeschooled since the 1st grade, they've never got exposed to school being policed. And that's a big difference, because in our school day, we don't see police. I mean, we don't see police at all unless we go somewhere where, like a museum, or if we go downtown, but they don't walk through metal detectors every day. They don't have to have drills if someone has a bomb or a gun in school. We don't have to drill that way. We do our basic, which most families do. If there's a fire, how you get out. If there's an emergency, setting your code words, what to do if you see someone strange walking around the neighborhood. We do these type of security measures, which when it comes down to it, some of the kids that are in school know that security more than home security, yes.
So if you So you know the security stuff you're talking about? If you see a strange person walking around, and if they bring their car the next day and it's like somewhere that they haven't been ever, all right, just stay cool for a little. Wait for the next day. If they're still there, tell the entire neighborhood like they're sus.
Yeah, they're suspect. Okay. And so that's one of the differences is the policing. They don't come in contact with police. They have more of a catered curriculum instead of having a common core curriculum, which the public schools have, which in essence outwardly out front says every child is common and they're the same at their core. And homeschoolers we openly say that our children are different. They have different personalities, so they tend to learn different things. So I think that's one of the biggest things is that there's no common core curriculum as far as that's concerned. And the current state of the public schools is that I think in general, in American society, I don't think people think it's okay for public schools to be what they say are failing, but it's year after year, people continue to send their children to schools that are failing their standards, where parents that homeschool will look at a homeschool and they quiz your kids to see what they know. And it's like, and then they're shocked. They're like, oh my goodness, they're so smart. Or just quizzing, but public school kids don't get quizzed, but they get standardized testing. And again, depending on the state laws, homeschoolers aren't required to take standardized testing every year, which are high stakes. They get nervous about sometimes. But the public schools, as far as being crowded and not correlating the crowds of kids that are in each classroom in public schools, not private schools, but in public schools, and not correlating that with anxiety, it really, for small children or children even up to 16, 17, it's nervous. It makes them nervous to be having to learn and compete with other kids. And so that's the one thing another thing that I see is that the competitive edge does go to the public schools. Kids are competitive from the second grade. They're competing to see who can line up first, who can get to the first desk, who can get rewards based on everything. So they're taught to do things based on rewards instead of doing things because it's right or doing things because it makes sense. Okay, so another thing about the public schools is that I noticed before I took him out that most of his teachers were not from even the county. They weren't even from the county. They would drive from nearby counties to come in and teach kids, and they wouldn't know anything about where the kids' grocery stores were, where their houses were. Everything would be based on what they heard about it. If they read statistics in the news and assumptions about the kids, about where they came from, but their teachers live nowhere nearby. And so they don't, that's in the public school system that I was exposed to. Also, the teachers, and the teachers were good. They were trying their best. I won't down their intentions and what they wanted to do, but a lot of
the system.
Yeah,
It's not them.
Yeah, it's more of the.
I like some of my old teachers.
Yeah, and so, yeah, I mean, do you know the difference between how public school is now?
Yeah.
Versus homeschool now?
Yeah. It's funny, I wasn't even like I wasn't in a public school, right? I was in a charter.
Yeah, charter schools are public schools.
They're public?
Yeah.
I thought like they only accept a certain
Yeah, they only accept a certain amount of kids, but they're
That's
public.
so they're still public.
They're still public in the sense that they
They limit
Any-
though.
anybody can go. Like, of course, there's a application process and things like that, but anybody can. They legally have to allow anybody to come. Whereas like a private school, they can deny you. So, like say a Catholic school and say, "Oh, well, you're not Catholic, so you can't come," although they don't necessarily do that. But or yeah, that just that. So yeah, it's.
I see the difference in between like public schools and homeschooling. Huge difference.
And another thing is that since I've been homeschooling, I noticed that I can take immediate action and change course of the kids' learning process. If I see something's not working, I can change it. And I realize that immediately because I have day-to-day contact instead of waiting 6 weeks to find out, okay, my child isn't doing well. Okay, I did get a test grade that didn't reflect, but I didn't know that this was a problem, and then you still can't change it. So we're not as susceptible to that. But yeah, public schools are public, and I think that homeschools can actually be like public. The public can homeschool. It can still be it can be private as far as your home, but it's a choice that has to be discussed within your family, and all that is more family oriented. One piece of advice I would say is get support from adults that live in your household first, and then try to get support from family members outside of your household. But if you cannot get that support, as long as you know that this is what's best for your child or the child that you're homeschooling, move forward with it, because you won't be sorry. Whatever situation you're coming out of with the public school or even a private school, homeschooling will offer a type of safety or a type of acceptance, automatic acceptance for that child. And that's the first step of educating, is that child accepting themselves, or the parent, the household feeling a place where they can be accepted, that they're at every day. They wake up and say, I'm accepted.
Do you have anything that you want to tell
What was the
students?
exact question you were giving?
What is a piece of wisdom or advice that you would like to give to new and perspective or perspective?
I can't really think of that one.
Okay.
I want to answer, but I can't really answer that question.
What did you do?
I just can't. I
Can't
don't
think of
know.
an answer?
Yeah, I can't think.
Like if one of your friends was like, guess what? My mom's gonna homeschool me next year. What would you tell them? Like, what advice would you give?
That's. I tell them that's cool. That's awesome.
I would.
Be more free with your time. I'd say that, because that 3-4 hours that extra I get compared to other kids in school,
I'd say
that's 3-4 hours of the day.
I would just tell
Most
them,
productive 3-4 hours of the day. No
I
worries.
would just say, be cool. Some points are hard. Everyone knows. When you homeschool, it's gonna be just like regular school, but better. You get to
Well,
see
of
your
course.
parents. Look out the window. Finally. Okay. And also, it's like you get to play with your friends after it. I know you can play with your friends after school, but it's really you can go out there whenever you.
That's another
You
thing.
can go outside whenever you need.
That's another thing. Thank you for mentioning that.
All right, that's all.
In school, what do they give you? What did they give us at the charter school? 30 minutes of recess?
I got about 15 or 20. And after after recess, it was just gone.
Yeah.
No school.
Well, in like my classes back at the charter school in elementary, we'd have recess for 30 minutes, then we do like a 2-hour session of science.
Oh.
So it's yeah, you definitely get more free time to yourself. Like lunch ain't even that free at that charter school that I used to go to. You'd have to keep your tone a certain level, right? You can't be playing. You gotta eat, and you can talk to like only a certain amount of people. I think the max was like 5. All right, you can't like gather people. You know what I'm saying? You gotta sit down.
So you're saying like your time is too restricted.
Also, right, yeah, they also wouldn't give us the time we needed. Lunch would be like 15 minutes long at max. Like,
I didn't know that. Wow.
yeah, it was horrible. And then recess, like I said, 30 minutes. And it was like they would choose if we were outside or inside. You know, I can choose my free time to be outside or inside in homeschool.
Got more questions about homeschooling? Want to hear more from Black homeschoolers? Visit blackhomeschoolquestions.com.